Pew Hispanic Center predicts by the year 2025, close to 30% of all American kids will have some Latino ancestry. For this generation and the next, assimilation is one of the biggest issues that they are facing. And we want to talk about that right now with our special guests, Soledad O'Brien, John Leguizamo, who just joined us, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, Cristina Perez, and Congresswoman Ileana Ross-Lehtinen as well, all joining us now. Soledad, the name Garcia, now among the top 10 last names.
It's
number 8.
Number 8 in America. Metaphor for what's happening in the country.
Listen to Valentina Garcia. She's talking about trying to balance her two cultures. Listen to what she says.
I think I struggle with my identity. Here in the States, I sometimes feel like, where do I fit in here in terms of trying to represent myself as a Latina? When I go back to Mexico or when I go back to Chile, I sometimes feel like I'm not Latina enough for them. I'm not enough for them. I'm not enough for them. Who am I?
Man,
John,
that's so true.
What do you think about when you hear what she says?
I mean, I know exactly how she feels. It's that being in between worlds,
navigating between
the
two.
Yeah, I've always felt like that. I always felt like when I'm here, I wasn't really like everybody else. We were the first Latin family in our block. We were like pioneers. And, it was rough going. I got beat up a lot and everything. And then when I go to Latin America,
You're too American.
I'm too gringo. Yo hablar así, mi español no ser bueno. And everybody's, picking on you there. So you're like caught in between these two worlds. And the only people you really, really relate to are the people like her that understand that you got to navigate these two worlds, and you're never going to fit completely, and that's not a bad thing either, because it gives you this great perspective, a lot of artists have always been outsiders, and that's a good thing.
You heard this from a lot of people, this struggle.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting to me? When I would go and report the story, people would come up to me and say, Soledad, I knew with that name you were one of us, and you were here to tell our stories. And it was so interesting because, my mother's Cuban. My Spanish is awful. I couldn't do interviews. I can understand, but I couldn't do the interviews in Spanish. Source of huge frustration to me. And yet at the same time, while you feel pulled by two cultures, you also feel very much embraced overall. I don't think necessarily people want to lose the hyphen Latino American.
Right.
I really don't think people are trying to shed that. I think it's kind of cool to embrace it.
I think we're a little different than all the previous immigration groups that first of all, they were of a white persuasion, whether you're Jewish, Italian. I mean, at some point you could change your name and lie, and everybody would believe you. When you're a Latin person, you could see that we're all part Indian, part black, and we got, it's all a different variety, the Starbucks coffee version of it, whatever you want with a little extra Indian, a little less, whatever. And so you can't blend. You can't really say, I'm white. They're not really going to believe you. So you have to own that, and we neighbor all of America, North America, so we're not going to just fade in and blend in. I think it's a beautiful marriage of the two that's going to have to happen.
Congresswoman, I mean, talk about the numbers a little bit, because what is it? A majority. Latinos will become, if the numbers hold, a majority in this country by the middle of this century.
And that may be a frightening statistic for some. It may be a startling one, but for us, I think that for the Minutemen. But I think that it shows the great diversity of America. And I agree with John and Soledad. And by the way, I can give you Spanish lessons if you like.
Call me later.
Okay, te llamo después. But the great thing is that we're all so proud, even whether you got off the boat yesterday or you've been here 5 generations, 10 generations, we're proud of our ancestry and our roots and our culture. And even if your Spanish is lousy, we just feel a great sense of pride. And it doesn't mean that we're standoffish or that we're exclusive or we want to be with our own. But I think it has a lot to do with pride. And I know that folks get scared with these numbers rising. But don't worry, we're not out to get you. We want to be part of the group, but we're still proud of who we are.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, if we wanted to get you, we would have already got you.
Mr. Mayor, is it important? Is it necessary to assimilate anymore, as many of the previous generations, not just Latino, but across the board, felt it was?
I think everybody can relate to a lot of what you just heard, feeling like you are in two different worlds. And I think that was, for me, that was particularly true when I was younger. Over time, I got comfortable in both worlds. I feel like I can transcend And I think a lot of us feel that way, frankly. My mother raised us to always be thankful what a great country we lived in, but to be proud of where we came from. And we always carried that gratitude, but also that pride. And there's nothing wrong with that. People are proud to be Americans and proud of their Italian, Greek ancestry. That is something that's not endemic to any one community, and it's one that I think we all share in the Latino community as well.
One of the stories we do in the documentary is to focus on Pico Rivera, California, a community with an interesting history that has now really become this, place that people aspire to go. And as I'm driving through Pico Rivera with a guy who's like the PR person in the town, 92% Latino, American flags up and down like you cannot imagine. And I mean, it almost looked like everybody that morning had run out and planted one of their flags.
They saw you coming.
And you say, so for people who have the sense that
so
somehow being Latino means that you're pushing away your American culture. My mother used to always go like this and be like, where did I get these Americans from? Meaning her kids. I'm like, you moved here from Cuba and you had us. I think Latinos very easily embrace both.
That's a great point.
It's a cultural balancing act.
Yeah, go ahead, Christina.
That's a great...
It's the cultural balancing act. My parents are from Colombia. I was born in the United States. I was raised in Mexico. Now I'm married to a crazy New Yorican. So I'm confused at home all the time. But for me, it's the cultural balancing act, the identity act. I think we can't deny who we are because it is our core identity. When people ask me, what are you? You can call me whatever you want. Well, whatever you want, but I'm an American. I am a Latina. I was born in the United States as a Latina. It is part of who I am, and I live in the greatest country in the world that lets me live with both cultures simultaneously and comfortably. So it's something that you learn how to be when you're a working parent and take care of kids.